Hi everyone, so this is my review on Bitterblue by Krisin Cashore, and it's the third book in the Seven Kingdoms series, Seven Kingdoms trilogy thingy, and yes, I've been eagerly awaiting this book for quite a while, because as many of you know, I'm a big fan of Krisin's previous two installments in this series, which are Fire and Graceling. Especially Graceling, I was a big fan. And I'm just incredibly fond of a lot of the characters and the world that she created. Worlds, I should say, because there's kind of two separate ones and they sort of both come into play in this final book. And yes, I've been awaiting it for quite some time, and I was very happy when it was finally released, and excuse me, and had to get my hands on it for my birthday, so probably my most anticipated birthday book. And yes, so I've been really struggling with what I'm going to say in this review and what I will ultimately be rating this book, because I'm torn. I'm emotionally torn because I feel so attached to this series and especially to these characters, and so a lot of the time I spent the novel, no matter what was going on and what I was critiquing in my head, I was just so happy to be back in the company of these characters, and that was maybe clouding my judgment at times, I'm not sure, but I was just so sincerely happy. It was like the same way that I feel reading the Harry Potter series, even my least favourite of those books, which I can critique and, you know, give like a lower rating, I will still always be enjoying them because of the universe and the people that populate it and all that sort of thing. It feels similar to these books as well. I just have that kind of unwavering loyalty, I suppose, I don't know, but anyway, yeah, I just have such an affection for them that it's difficult to separate that in my mind when anyway, so this is more of a direct sequel to Graceling than Fire was a companion novel to Graceling, and this is set 8 years on from the events of Graceling, and it follows Queen Bitterblue of Monsea, and she is struggling to get her kingdom back into order after the hideous disaster zone left behind in Lek's wake, her dad Lek, who was a psychopath completely, and yeah, we just see her struggling to figure things out and realise what her role is in being a queen, and she's trying to uncover mysteries of the past, and she wants to know exactly what it was her dad got up to and things, although part of me understands that, and I was very curious as well, but another part of me was like, please don't explore what Lek did. I don't think anyone needs to hear what he did. I think we can all imagine, and what I imagined he'd done was what ended up being the case, but although, more on that later. And also her falling in love and all that sort of thing, because that has to happen, of course. And we have a lot of characters returning to the action in this book from the first novel. So we've got Katza and Poe are back, Raffen and Bane. I'm calling him Bane, but it's probably Ban. But in my head I just say Bane. Raffen and Bane are back, and Gideon. And I did not like Gideon in the first book very much. I mean, he was technically a good guy, but I found him irritating, and he didn't get along with Katza, and he was a bit of a sexist tool at times. But you knew he was decent enough, but I had a real affection for him in this book, so I liked that my attitude towards him changed during the course of this novel. I sincerely liked the guy, and I really liked his chemistry with Bitterblue, actually, and I believe I'm not alone. I've seen 1 or 2 reviews on Goodreads that have said this, where they wish that the romantic interest for Bitterblue could have been Gideon, because that would have made so much more sense to me. Their chemistry was right on the whole time, and I thought, I can see you two together, and I think that would work, but, you know, whatevs. That's not really a spoiler. I don't count that as a spoiler, but I'll put spoilers in the heading. And yes, we have those familiar faces back. There's also a familiar face towards the end of the book that I was hoping would happen, and thank goodness it did. Hooray. I should say this is set, I think it's 50, no, it could be 60. 60-ish years on from the events of, no, that doesn't work. It's at least, oh, hold on, at least 50 years on from the events of Fire. Yeah, trying to work it out in my head. And we meet some new characters in this book. There's Sapphire, who is kind of a thief dude who also helps to run a printing press place, and there's his buddy called Teddy, who I adore. Teddy wasn't in it nearly enough for me. He felt like he kind of went in and then went out, and I'm like, come back, Teddy, I love you. So I really had an affection for Teddy. There's lots of characters who live inside the castle and work inside the castle that we get to know. I really like the librarian, Death. His name's spelt Death, but pronounced Death. I really liked him, and he features actually in the back. There's an index of the characters, a who's who of the world as we know it, and it's compiled by Death, so it's written in character, and I think that's really cool. And he has a cat. He loves cats, so I thought that was awesome. He's a really grumpy, he's a bit of a bastard, and I find that really endearing, though. Yeah, and Lek features heavily in a lot of backstory and things, so he's still very much a presence in the book. It's separated into sections that have little titles, so the first, like part 2 is Puzzles and Muddles, and that takes place in September, so it goes in sections over the course of the year. And yeah, it's essentially constructed around Bitterblue discovering like mysteries of the past concerning her dad and his rule of the kingdom. Essentially that's the loose structure of which everything occurs. And but the thing is, okay, one of my main issues with this book, and I think it's something that's bothered a lot of readers, is that there is so much going on, and it's ridiculously convoluted. There are a million subplots going down, and things that begin and then don't end, so there's tons of loose ends, at least I think there are, because I'm still a bit confused, and I was trying to follow things, and on the one part it feels purposeful, because the big notion is that Lek left this kingdom and all its inhabitants in a big fat old mess, and everyone's heads have been turned to mush, and so no one knows what the heck's going on. So a lot of the time it felt almost meta, in that Bitterblue, being our protagonist and our narrator, she was often commenting on the fact, is everyone insane? What the hell's going on? WTF? She was just very confused the whole time, which was helpful because I was very confused almost the whole time and thinking that everyone is freaking insane. So there were a lot of subplots which I felt didn't really need to be there necessarily, and when they were there, they were impacting on other things I was more interested in, and then some of them I don't think wrapped up, so I don't know what went on there, or if they did, they just fed into another thing, and I was left feeling dissatisfied and still a bit confused as to where that was meant to head and what it was meant to symbolize and things. So there was a lot of shit going on that didn't quite make sense. But it's difficult to criticize that because you feel like that might have been the point. But anyway, also, it's tricky because this is set 8 years on from the events of Graceling, so Bitterblue has technically been in office as Queen of Monty for 8 years. And so a lot of the stuff that she doesn't understand and doesn't know, like she's not aware of 3/4 of the bloody rooms and offices and services that are within her castle, let alone what's in her kingdom. So how she went 8 years without learning this stuff is beyond me, and how she went 8 years without questioning things that she's only just beginning to question, like she's just asking her advisors these things and startling them with her interest in it and stuff. I thought, what have you been doing for 8 years? Like, you get the sense, and it's discussed, that she's been kept under wraps for a long time and her advisors have been shielding stuff from her because she was very young when she became queen, and they've been, like, you know, keeping her locked in the office and doing stuff so that she's unaware of the goings-on and just how bad the situation is in the kingdom. But nonetheless, it's been 8 years, so that was my main thing, was I just kept thinking, Bitterblue, how the heck did you not know this? 8 years, girl, what were you doing? Were you just sleeping? But yeah, that was something that baffled me. So those were my main 2 things. Also, the romance, you may as well know who the romance is with. It's with Sapphire. He was okay, but I never really felt any strong connection to him. He didn't seem all that likable to me, and he does something that's really, it's not even that it's douchebaggy, it's just plain bloody stupid and childish, about 3/4 of the way through the book, in reaction to something he learns, and it was just plain bloody stupid, and then it subsequently took up a large part of the rest of the book, and fed into the plot, and I found that annoying. I was kind of like, dude, this is plain stupid. And as I said, my preference was definitely for Bitterblue to get with Gideon. I knew it wouldn't happen. Like, my lamp just fell over. Awesome. I knew right from the outset who the romantic... Excuse me. Stay still, lamp. I knew right from the outset who the romantic interest would be. You could tell. It wasn't insta-love, thank goodness, but you knew who, like, the novel was veering towards this person. And yes, that just didn't really interest me that much. But side character-wise, I was just in a land of happy because all my friends were back, and I had Katza and Poe, and their relationship together was awesome. Again, there was some sort of meta aspect, because Bitterblue was often watching them interact and how volatile they can both be with one another, and the fact that they'll have big arguments, but then really saucy, like, make-up sex practically in public view with each other. And she was kind of, you know, confused but intrigued by the dynamics of their relationship and the fact that they are very unconventional and they're still not going to get married or have kids or anything. And other people are questioning about that, as they always do. And, like, she'd comment on that and ask others about it. And it's the first time, I think it's the first time in these 3 books that we've had open discussion or mention of homosexual relationships. It's been alluded to in past books, but I think this is the first time that we actually learn of 2 homosexual couples that are involved, and 2 of them are characters I love very much. I won't give away who that is, but I love them very dearly, so I was really happy to learn that they're happy together. Yes, what else do I want to say? And yeah, Teddy especially was a new character I liked very much. There's some side characters that I don't quite understand how they became enemies and allies of Bitterblue, but at some point in the novel she's kind of just like, yeah, I trust you. I'm like, why do you trust that person? Who is that person? There's some dark stuff going on. I think because I went into this book sort of at the same time I was reading The Book of Lost Things by John Connolly, and in that the villain, the Crooked Man, commits some really dastardly acts that are described in quite gruesome detail, and so coming off that I expected sort of to have that element, that level of grotesque, in-your-face description with regards to Lek and his past crimes, but it never got nearly as involved as that, and not to want to sound sadistic and sick, but I guess I kind of expected it would, because so much had been built up as to what the horrible things that he'd done, or that he suggested that he'd done to people and to their minds. And he was mind-raping everybody. And so the fact that we have a lot of his journal entries and things in this book, I was just expecting it to be more heavy-handed than it ended up being. And so, although I feel disgusting saying it, that was actually kind of a letdown. Not to sound yuck, but yeah, on the one hand, like, and Bitterblue even, it was very meta. I often felt like, Bitterblue, stop saying the things in my head. Yeah, she was kind of like, I want to know more, but I'm going to leave it for now because it's screwing with my head, and it was. And understandably, because that's your dad. Yeah, and character-wise, it was hard because little Bitterblue that we knew in Graceling sort of baffled me a little. I'm saying baffled a lot, I apologize. But she was very, she's a very serious little 10-year-old girl. And I found it hard to connect with her as a child. Like, it felt like she was a 40-year-old woman who was 10 in a 10-year-old's body. I liked her, I cared for her, but I just found it funny. And she seems very removed from her 10-year-old self in this one, because she's so clueless and doesn't know what's going on. It was hard to connect the two as being the same person. I still cared about her and what was going on with her, and the fact that she had been left behind this horrible legacy to clean up, and her life had royally sucked. Royally, she's the queen. And I did feel very bad for her, but it was, I didn't feel as much of a connection emotionally to her as I did to Katza and to Fire. Yeah, and there's some dark stuff that goes on towards the end that emotionally hooked me, and I won't say what it is, but her reactions to some things that happened towards, to her friends towards the end of the book hit me, because there was a personal experience with that. I'm not going to say what it is, though. Yeah, this is such a messy review, I apologize, but I'm still sorting out my feelings. I'm rather like Bitterblue. I'm sorting out my head at the moment. I want to give it at least 4 stars because of my affection for this universe and these characters. And then part of me wants to give it 3 stars because I was so frickin' confused. So I think I will, for now, land on a 3.5 star rating. I am really sorry to see it go, and for me, even though I can recognise that it was far too long for the subplots that didn't really need to be there or dragged on, because it is a long book, it's 563 pages. I mean, I still finished it and had unanswered questions and things, and I thought, are they going to continue? Is there going to be a fourth book? Because it felt like there was still that potential, because things didn't necessarily conclude or wrap up. It was sort of just looking ahead to the future and, you know, the bright hope and all that sort of thing, and I thought, well, that could continue into another book if you wanted it to. So, yeah, things felt unfinished for me at the end as well. But I love that we have maps. Maps make me happy. And the character descriptions at the end are awesome. And also online, I found, on Krisin Cashore's blog, I found secret council letters from the spring of Bitterblue's 18th year, and they're the letters that precede the action of the book between Katzar and Bitterblue and Poe. And I read them and they're so entertaining, so I printed them off to put that in my copy of the book. I'm rambling, so I will give it 3.5 stars for now, but I do thoroughly recommend, if you like high fantasy and interesting characters and a really fascinating mythology and fantastical lore, I do recommend check out the Seven Kingdoms series. It's the only series where you'll find that overt descriptions of people's eye colour is not redundant and doesn't actually get annoying, because it has meaning and influence on what's going on. So, yeah, I'm going to shut up now. 3.5 stars for Bitterblue.